Welcome back, friends. Today we're taking a look at the last dying gasp of Mattel figures in the DC line. It's Poison Ivy.
Prepare to suffer the wrath of Mother Nature!
Here is Poison Ivy out of the package, and first impressions with the sculpt, well, the head's kind of nice, kind of like that, kind of like the sculpt in the hair. It's very flowy, but then we look at everything else, and, her suit, I like how the abs are just suggested, and she's not, like, roided out like, most superhero figures are. Like, it's because the real cloth doesn't actually do that, so it's kind of realistic there. But then you look at, like, the little details, the edge of her tunic, and I guess they're supposed to be leaves, but they're just kind of these formless, bumpy things. It's a really soft sculpt. These things aren't even sculpted on, they're just painted on. The boots are also just painted. There's no sculpted line there. That's not great. Ugh, could you have made that text any bigger and more ugly, Mattel? Oh, well, at least the hair is going to hide it most of the time. Nice booty. But most of the body, kind of bad. Paint on the face is clean. It's good enough. You can tell she's got green lips. You can tell there's green eyes in there. Looks pretty good. There's actually a wash on the hair. I mean, that's a little bit of effort from Mattel. I'm pretty surprised about that. Then if you're just going to paint the gloves on, at least get like a straight line. Look how like blurry those lines are. They're so bad. The boots are a bit straighter, I guess. That's okay. And I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but the arms and the head are one skin tone, and the torso is totally different because they molded it in green, I bet, which is dumb because this is a separate piece than the rest of this. That's paint on the head's okay, sculpt on the head's okay. Paint everywhere else is just terrible. Thanks for nothing, Mattel. For articulation, Poison Ivy's head is kind of weird. It's like a ball joint, kind of. She can look a bit up, a bit down, I guess. Side to side, just a little bit. And goes all the way around. The hair doesn't really hinder swiveling, but then when you look at it, she kind of has a cut joint at the base of her neck below the ball joint piece. That's some weird choices there, Mattel. Diaphragm joint goes this far forward, that far back. No side to side at all, actually. And is it just me, or does it not swivel? Like, it goes that far, and if I go further, I feel like I'm going to break it. Are you kidding me, Mattel? It doesn't swivel around? What the heck? Arms are hinge and swivel. They can go above 90. That's good. All the way around, no problem. Elbows also hinge and swivel. Go about 90 degrees, can twist all the way around. Wrists, hinge and swivel. Go up and down. Nothing at the waist. The diaphragm would make up for that, except it can't spin around. What the heck? This is a stupid decision, Mattel. Hips are on ball hinges. They can come that far forward. Good range. Don't really go back at all. She can do the splits this wide, and upper thigh swivel right there. Double knees get pretty good range, though she can't quite kick her own butt. And then there's Marvel Legends style pivot ankles, it looks like, but surprise, surprise, they are just hinges. They don't really get side to side at all. Way to cheap out on us, Mattel. I mean, at least the elbows and the wrists swivel and hinge for once, but I mean, this doesn't go all the way around? These don't pivot? And we get double knees. That's nice. I mean, it's a slight improvement from Mattel, but overall, the articulation is pretty much crap. So Poison Ivy's packaging is pretty much the normal Mattel Multiverse stuff. It's kind of horrible. I hate it because of this dent that makes it hard to open, but at least there's good artwork there. And wow, look at all the little leaves in Poison Ivy's costume. Would have been nice to get a costume with that level of detail. Got a little logo in the corner for DC Comics Originals. On the back, there's a write-up. The beautiful but lethal eco-terrorist, Dr. Pamela IZ, trademark, defends nature at all costs no matter who suffers. Yeah, that's nice. And then there's other figures that released alongside her, and the Joker and the, I guess, Michael Keaton Batman look kinda horrible when I saw them at the store, so I didn't get them. Other side of the packaging is a close-up of the same art. And up in the little corner there, you get a Batman 80 Years logo. Let's see, these things open from the side, but also from this side. It's hard. It's so weird. Look at that! Look how weird that is! Oh, thank goodness we're not getting this kind of packaging anymore. Backdrop's just some yellow dots? What kind of backdrop is this, Mattel? What the heck? Poison Ivy just pops out. It's not so easy, but at least there were no twist ties. Same thing with her crossbow. Then there are twist ties on these little leafy vine things, but thankfully you can just kind of pull them on out anyways. That's nice. So, packaging's pretty horrible, but at least the artwork's nice. For accessories, first, Poison Ivy gets this crossbow. It doesn't move. It doesn't have anything to shoot with it. This string is not a real string. It's just plastic, and everything's painted this puke green color, except for the one little arrow that's non-removable. Kind of weird, honestly. And it doesn't even seem to fit in her hand. Like, look how big that handle is. I mean, wow, geez. Well, you can kind of stretch the plastic and get it to squish in her hand, but I mean, this thing looks a little big for her, doesn't it? I don't know. It's kind of weird. I remember Poison Ivy having like a little wrist crossbow in the animated series, and that would have been cool to get. Maybe some alternate hands would have been cool. Next up, she gets 4 of these leafy string things. I mean, I guess they're supposed to be leaves, but the sculpt on them is kind of soft. The big ones are supposed to wrap around her legs, like so. And then the little ones go around her arms. And I guess these are supposed to make her design a bit more interesting, but the thing with them is they feel cheap. And like, why wouldn't you just sculpt the leaves onto her arms and legs, Mattel? Oh well, I know the answer. It's because you're cheap. And these feel cheap. They just see that? They just slide on off. For scale comparison time, Poison Ivy stands just under 6.5 inches tall. As always, here she is next to my DC Universe Batman and Marvel Legends Spider-Man. Let's get Spider-Man out of here because this is kind of the more appropriate comparison. And wow, I started collecting Mattel DC figures with DC Universe Classics, and now here we are at like the end of Mattel. Can't wait to see what McFarlane brings us. Here she is looking a bit bigger than her best friend Harley Quinn, which means Mattel's scaled up their female figures over the years, I guess. And finally with all the other members of Mattel's Batman Rogues Gallery. So should you ultimately get the DC Multiverse Poison Ivy figure from Mattel if you still happen to find it on the aisle somehow, friends? Well, honestly, probably not. Mattel's never been that great at making DC figures, and this one's no exception. Sculpt and the paint on the face are pretty good, but everything else is disappointing. The articulation and the accessories are pretty bad, and she doesn't even scale properly with your old DC Mattel villain figures, so all that's really left to say is, bye-bye, Mattel!